Dark chocolate. You already know about dark chocolate. High in magnesium, one of the best food sources available. 228 milligrams per 100 grams. More than most leafy greens, more than most nuts, more than most things a nutritionist points to when a patient comes in with a deficiency. You have heard this. You believe it. It is correct. Now hold that number. The dried leaf of this vine contains more magnesium per 100 grams than dark chocolate. The vine grows on fences, in backyards, in vacant lots, in every tropical and subtropical climate zone on the planet. In Florida, planting it is prohibited under state invasive species law. In several other states, growing it carries agricultural restrictions. Welcome to the vault. If you are currently managing blood sugar through medication, through supplements, through a continuous glucose monitor that costs $200 a month, you are participating in a market valued at over $100 billion annually. Metformin, the most prescribed blood glucose drug in the world, costs between $30 and $60 a month in its generic form. The continuous glucose monitor subscription runs $200 to $300. The chromium picolinate and berberine capsules your functional medicine practitioner recommended add another $40. He added up over a year, and the number is significant. Now consider this. 2 billion people across South Asia, East Asia, West Africa, and the Caribbean manage their metabolic health with a vine they grow in their backyard. That vine produces 5 distinct foods from a single plant in a single growing season. The fruit, the young leaves, the shoots, the ripe seed arils, the root, all edible, all documented nutritionally, all available from one plant that propagates freely and requires no agricultural inputs beyond water and a fence to climb. You are spending $60 a month managing something this vine has been documented to affect in 150 peer-reviewed studies. Not one of those studies was funded by a U.S. federal institution. The vine is Momordica carrantia. It carries a different name in every country it feeds. Karela in India, Ampalaya in the Philippines, Goya in Okinawa, Iku Gua in Mandarin, Karail in the Caribbean. It has been in continuous cultivation in India for at least 5,000 years. The Karaka Samhita, the foundational Ayurvedic medical text compiled between the 2nd century BC and the 2nd century AD, documents it specifically as a treatment for metabolic and digestive conditions. Chinese traditional medicine texts from the Tang dynasty, written independently on the other side of the Himalayas, record the same applications for the same plant in the same period. This is not folk medicine in the dismissive sense. It is a 5,000-year clinical record produced independently by 2 of the most systematically developed medical traditions in human history, documenting the same vine, the same mechanism, and the same outcome. Momordica carrantia reached the Caribbean and South America through the transatlantic slave trade in the 16th and 17th centuries. Enslaved Africans carried seed knowledge the colonial powers neither catalogued nor credited. Today, bitter melon is a staple vegetable across Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, Guyana, and coastal West Africa. In Okinawa, Japan, one of 5 documented blue zones on Earth, where measurable human longevity is among the highest ever recorded, bitter melon is consumed daily as part of the traditional diet called champuru. The relationship between Okinawan dietary patterns and Okinawan longevity has been studied in gerontology journals. No clinical trial has specifically tested the vine's role in that data. The scientific record begins in the 1960s when researchers first began isolating active compounds from the plant. By 1990, the peer-reviewed publication count on Momordica carrantia exceeded 50. By 2005, it exceeded 100. Today, a PubMed database search returns over 150 clinical and biochemical studies documenting effects on blood glucose metabolism, insulin receptor sensitivity, and inflammatory pathways. In 2002, the World Health Organization published its traditional medicine strategy, formally listing bitter melon among the plants with sufficient traditional use documentation to warrant prioritized clinical investigation. In 2003, the FDA sent warning letters to multiple companies selling bitter melon products that cited peer-reviewed studies in their marketing materials. The The WHO acknowledged its traditional use in 2002. The FDA sent warning letters to companies that cited the same studies the WHO acknowledged. In the same decade, the vine continued producing 5 foods. The U.S. clinical trial funding did not appear. Charenton, a steroidal glycoside compound isolated from bitter melon fruit. A 1981 study in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology documented its capacity to lower blood glucose in animal models at concentrations achievable through dietary consumption of the whole fruit. That mechanism has been reproduced across 14 independent laboratory studies over the following 4 decades. The pharmaceutical compound with the most comparable mechanism of action currently generates $4 billion in annual global sales. 3 documented active compounds, 150 studies. 0 federally funded U.S. human trials. Polypeptide P, a plant-derived peptide first identified in bitter melon in 1981 and studied in subsequent peer-reviewed publications, including Phytomedicine. It is structurally analogous to insulin in its mechanism of interaction with cellular receptors. No completed human clinical trial funded by a U.S. federal agency has ever tested polypeptide P in a controlled setting. A synthetic pharmaceutical compound with a comparable receptor-binding mechanism is currently in phase 2 trials with an estimated development cost of $800 million. The bitter melon vine produces polypeptide P as a byproduct of existing photosynthesis. Vitamin C, 84 milligrams per 100 grams of raw fruit. Oranges deliver 53. That comparison is not the main point of this video. It is included because it illustrates the scale of the oversight. A fruit more vitamin C dense than the one parents have given children for 60 years to prevent deficiency is sitting in the Category 1 invasive species list in 16 American states. Magnesium. The dried leaf of Momordica carantia contains between 230 and 290 milligrams of magnesium per 100 grams of dry weight. According to mineral composition studies published by research institutions in India and sub-Saharan Africa, regions where this plant's nutrition has been systematically analyzed because those regions actually eat it. Dark chocolate contains 228 milligrams per 100 grams. The dried leaf has more. 5 foods, 1 vine, 1 growing season, 0 agricultural inputs beyond water, and a support structure to climb. The global diabetes drug market is valued at over $100 billion annually and is projected to reach $170 billion by 2030. The top 5 blood glucose management pharmaceuticals collectively generate over $25 billion per year in U.S. sales. The continuous glucose monitor market is a further $12 billion. Metformin alone, in generic form, generates $4 billion annually, which means the original patent-protected version produced substantially more before exclusivity expired. Now consider the clinical trial economics of Momordica carantia. The plant cannot be patented. The active compounds, charenton, polypeptide P, visine, are naturally occurring biological structures not eligible for pharmaceutical exclusivity. A successful U.S. clinical trial confirming their efficacy in human subjects would generate publicly accessible evidence that a vine available as a $4 seed packet addresses conditions currently managed through $30 to $60 monthly prescriptions. The financial return on funding that trial for any pharmaceutical investor is structurally negative. The financial consequence of that trial never happening is $4 billion a year in metformin sales, continuing without documented natural competition. In Florida, Momordica carantia is listed as a Category 1 invasive species by the Florida Exotic Pest Plant Council, making cultivation without a state agricultural permit a violation. Florida also records one of the highest rates of type 2 diabetes of any U.S. state. Those are 2 separate facts from 2 separate databases. The pharmaceutical compound that does what this vine does costs $4 billion a year in sales. The vine costs the price of a seed packet and grows back every season. The legal landscape is navigable. Florida, Hawaii, and a small number of other states restrict bitter melon cultivation under invasive species classifications. In those states, verify your county regulations before planting anything. In the majority of U.S. states, including all continental states outside the restricted Southeast, bitter melon can be grown legally in a home garden without any permit. In restricted states, enclosed container cultivation, a large pot on a screened porch, a greenhouse structure, any contained system that prevents the plant from accessing open soil or waterways, may satisfy the containment requirement that the invasive classification is based on. Identification is distinctive enough to be learned in a single glance. The fruit is elongated and densely warty, bumpy in a way no other vegetable resembles, and bright green when unripe, turning orange as it matures fully. The vine climbs aggressively on any available structure and requires a trellis or fence. When the fruit is fully ripe and splits open, it reveals bright red seed arils. These are sweet, not bitter, and completely edible raw. This is the third of the 5 foods. The young shoots and leaves are the fourth. They cook exactly like spinach when stir-fried at high heat and carry the same documented nutritional density as the fruit. The root, dried and prepared through the methods documented in Ayurvedic pharmacopoeial literature, is the fifth. To prepare the unripe fruit, slice lengthwise and scoop out the seeds and inner pith. Slice the flesh thin. Salt the slices and leave for 10 minutes. Then rinse. This draws out some of the bitter compounds without removing the active ones. Stir-fry with garlic and egg over high heat for 2 to 3 minutes. Slice it thin, salt it for 10 minutes. Rinse. Stir-fry with garlic and egg. The bitterness that remains after salting is the compound the studies are documenting. That is not incidental. That is the mechanism, present in the food, doing what it does. Seeds are available through Asian seed suppliers and multiple online retailers that ship legally to unrestricted states. Before planting, confirm your specific state and county classification with your local agricultural extension service. This video is for informational and educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical, legal, or agricultural advice. Consult a licensed healthcare provider before making any changes to your current treatment protocol. Return for a moment to where this video started. Dark chocolate, magnesium gold standard, 228 milligrams per 100 grams. Correct. Still true. The dried leaf of a vine classified as a prohibited invasive species in Florida has more magnesium per 100 grams than the food you eat specifically to get that mineral. That sentence has not changed between the beginning of this video and now. What has changed is everything surrounding it. The vine does not make arguments. It grows on fences in Jamaica and Okinawa and coastal West Africa, producing 5 foods from one root system, while the studies documenting its active compounds accumulate in a database that pharmaceutical trial funding has never followed into a completed human trial. The studies came after the practice. The practice came from 5,000 years of people observing what happened when they ate the vine. 2 billion people did not wait for a US clinical trial. They planted the vine, harvested the fruit, cooked the leaves, ate the red seed arils, and managed their metabolic health with something that costs nothing and grows back every year. The 150 studies did not precede that knowledge. They confirmed it decades later. What changed today is that you now know why the confirmation never became a prescription. Share this video. Not for the algorithm, though it helps. Share it because someone in your network is paying $60 a month for prescription management of something a $4 seed packet addresses through documented mechanisms, and they have no idea that the vine-producing 5 foods is classified as illegal to plant in the state that records some of the highest rates of the exact condition it addresses. Subscribe because next week the vault opens on a weed. Not a vine. A weed. It grows through concrete, through asphalt, through the gaps in every sidewalk slab in every city in the Northern Hemisphere. The U.S. Army documented its full nutritional profile in 1944 for emergency field ration planning. It is currently classified as an invasive nuisance in 28 states and actively sprayed off roadsides at public expense. The file contains 17 peer-reviewed studies and one specific number that will permanently change how you look at your own lawn. That file opens next week. Be here when it does.